Oh, the Jets. The New York Jets. You don't have Rex Ryan or the butt fumble to blame any longer. Oh, your heart goes out to him. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you enjoy the Jets sucking. Because sometimes it sure feels like that organization enjoys sucking. They feel like they're porn stars sucking a rod, waiting for that money shot to blast all over and hopefully doesn't get in their eyes. Or maybe they want it there. I don't know. But my goodness, another bad lost year for the Jets. You spend money in free agency on guys like Trumaine Johnson, Avery Williamson, you bring in Teddy Bridgewater, then you draft Sam Darnold, number 3 overall, and you still end up sucking. So it's no surprise that Todd Bowles was sent packing. To me, the greater surprise is how general manager Mike McCagnon still has a job. He ultimately got it wrong with the head coach. He's been there 4 years, 0 playoff trips, and yet because he's the general manager, he has more job security because he took a young quarterback when he traded up from 6 to 3, and we might not ever know truly if it was really Sam Darnold that he wanted, especially at the time that he made the trade. There's no way he could have known that the Browns were hot around Baker Mayfield. But he gets the chance to hire their next head coach. Whatever, we'll talk about that in a minute. But when you look at this 2018 season, it was a lost season for the Jets. They were just bad in pretty much every facet. Offensively, 27th in passing yards, 26th in rushing yards, 31st in total yards. They had a couple of games where they scored big. 2 30-plus point games, 2 40-plus point games. But they also had 9 games with less than 20 points. So imagine if they didn't have those random offensive explosions, how bad their offensive statistics would really look. I mean, defensively, 24th against the pass, 26th against the run, 25th overall. They struggled to gain yards, and they gave up a shit ton of yards. As a general rule, not a good formula for NFL success. But what really, I guess you would say, mattered most about this 2018 season was Sam Darnold. And how was he going to show for himself? How was he going to play when he ultimately got the opportunity? And I think, as you would expect with a lot of rookie quarterbacks, especially in a situation where the talent around him on offense was not great, he struggled. He had some good games, yes, and he definitely had some highlights and made some nice throws. And then he had other games you're like, oh, good. Yeah, not good. And that's going to happen. When you look at this 2018 quarterback class, the truth is Lamar Jackson played well with what the Ravens tasked him with and how they shifted the offense around him. But he still only played half the season. He primarily was beating teams running the football, and that's not a long-term formula for success out of the quarterback position. Josh Rosen stunk, but the Cardinals stunk. So unfair to judge him. Josh Allen was as inaccurate as he's ever was in college, but he was also a running beast. He looked like white Cam Newton. He really, truly did. But again, in Buffalo, the talent around him was so shitty, how could you really evaluate him? You look at Baker Mayfield, he was easily the best of the rookie quarterbacks, not that that said a whole lot, but he was also in by far the best situation. By far the best situation. Even when he had the handicap of Hugh Jackson as his head coach and Todd Haley as his offensive coordinator. And then once they were gone, it got even better for him. He actually had weapons. He had a consistent ground game. He had a lot of those things. So you look at Sam Darnold and something like, it wasn't great, but he completed over 7% of his passes, more touchdowns than interceptions. Yeah, obviously you want to see better, you want to see more, but he needs more help around him before you can really even start to begin to measure this guy. I'm just saying. It's nice when you get a rookie like Chris Herndon to come in and really do some nice things at the tight end position. That's a good start. They've still got a lot of needs, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And when you look at their recent drafting, I look at this, and to me this screams out that Mike Maccagnan should have been fired. Now, sure, he drafted Sam Darnold. He got the young quarterback. And Nathan Shepard, I thought, was okay as a rookie. Chris Herndon, I already mentioned, was really good as a rookie. I like Perry Nickerson. I think he'll be a nice player for them for a long period of time. So the players they took, including the guy I can't pronounce his name at the moment, all of them are going to contribute for this team, I would think, for a few years. So not a bad draft class. You look at 2017 and you say Jamal Adams, Marcus May, Elijah McGuire, contributors. Adams is the quarterback of that defense, the building block of that defense. But then he massively whiffed on guys like Ardarius Stewart and Chad Hansen. Like he can't get the wide receiver position right. But then you go back to the 2016 draft, Darren Lee's been in. Christian Hackenberg was the quarterback he took in round 2, and we all know how much of a flop that was. He was so bad that even at the end of lost seasons, they refused to play him. Jordan Jenkins has been okay, but it's not anything that you sit there and you say it's worth writing home to that Mike Maccagnan is a stud, all the while he hired Todd Bowles, all the while he failed to really assemble the proper team around his young quarterback to put him in a good situation. So, yeah, they let him hire another guy, and they let him hire, of all things, Crazy Eyes Adam Gase. All this talk about Adam Gase being some type of offensive fucking guru, where the hell does this come from? Because he had a couple of years as a quarterback coach and offensive coordinator with Peyton fucking Manning and that great explosive high-powered Broncos offense that had a bunch of weapons? When he was in Chicago, his 1 year as a play caller. He got Cutler to suck less, but he didn't make Cutler any better. Goes to Miami, doesn't get anything more out of Tannehill. You can blame injuries all you want. The fact is he didn't coach the guy up. Gets fired by a divisional rival, and you decide, based off of his track record, that you've got to have you some of that. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. The fuck are they doing? But anyways, Maccagnan stays because the Jets are stupid. But that said, Maccagnan is going to have a shit ton of space in terms of salary cap that he'll ultimately screw up because that's what Maccagnan does. But you look at this team, what are they going to be looking at? They're going to be looking for help on the offensive side of the ball, specifically skill position players, and they're going to be looking for some type of edge rusher on the defensive side of the ball. So you look offensively. Are they going to be willing to fork over huge money to Le'Veon Bell? Maybe. Maybe not. Defensively, you've got a glut of pass rushers hitting the market. Jadeveon Clowney, DeMarcus Lawrence, Frank Clark. There's a possibility that all those guys are franchise tagged by their teams, but even if one of them doesn't end up franchise tagged, I'd be really surprised if the Jets didn't end up pulling the trigger and signing one of those guys. We'll see what happens. But they've got a ton of cap space. And boy, they need to use it because they've got holes all over the place on both sides of the ball. Now, when you look at their team needs, the number one team need clearly is a general manager. We'll probably find out soon enough that number 2 is a head coach. Like, again, seriously, Adam Gase, massively overrated. On top of that, when you talk about this hiring of Gase, it's one thing if the the Dolphins had fired him and he took a year or two off, was able to reevaluate things, and then he came back and got another opportunity. But the guy just got fired, and you just rehired him. It just mind-blowing to me. It reminds me of when the Bills just got all giggly tits because the Jets had fired Rex Ryan. No time away. Here he is. We're going to bring Rex in. That lasted 2 years and was a disaster. Who's to say that it won't be the same way with Gase and the Jets? I don't know. But if he does suck, it ultimately means that Maccagnan will have to be gone too, which in theory is a good thing. Except when you realize that if Adam Gase fails and Mike Maccagnan fails, that ultimately means that Sam Darnold probably fails. And then if you're a Jets fan, you're feeling all types of ways about the next decade for this organization. So you've got to get better on both sides of the ball, specifically on the offense. You look at that wide receiver position. How much are you really going to count on a guy like Robbie Anderson? I mean, he's had moments, but you need a real number one. Stop pretending that Robbie Anderson's number one. You need help all over that offensive line, at the tackle position, at the guard position. You could use a featured bell cow running back, whether that comes via free agency or trade or the draft. Probably wouldn't hurt you to invest in that position a couple of times. Even though you got a couple of guys that aren't terrible, but they're role players. Even when you look at a guy like Trenton Cannon, who was a 6th-round pick, he had a couple of flashes there. But they need some playmakers. They need some playmakers at the skill position offensively, and then they have to beef up their protection in front of Sam Darnold. Defensively, obviously, they can still use an edge rusher, which we seem to be talking about with the Jets forever. They could use some more depth at the corner position. Yeah, I don't know. I look at this team, and it's it's all going to come down to Adam Gase and what he can get out of Sam Darnold. And I'm sorry. He didn't get anything more out of Jay Cutler. He didn't get anything more really out of Ryan Tannehill. He really didn't. What all of a sudden makes you think that he's going to be this great quarterback whisperer when the only time he was whispering was to a guy who didn't need the fucking help and Peyton Manning, who's a legend and an all-time great at the position? Let's get a grip on reality here, people. I'm just saying. But when you do look at the Jets, even though they don't have the 2nd-round pick this year because of the trade to get Sam Darnold last year, they've still got the 3rd overall pick, over $100 million in cap space, and in theory, a young franchise quarterback that they can build around. This is not a horrible situation. It'll just be up to Adam Gase and Mike McCagnon to help make it not a terrible situation.